Hi, today we're going to be talking about our Los Angeles bike project. So as a really brief overview of what we're going to be talking about, first we're going to start off with our background and context, go into our problem and the data we had at hand, followed by our exploratory and research questions, and then we'll be wrapping it up with our initial analysis, our research findings, our shortcomings, and then our conclusion on the project. So Metro Bikes LA debuted in early July of 2016 with the vision of making short trips environmentally friendly and providing Angelenos with more transportation options. Now the mission was to provide these convenient accesses to a multitude of bikes which are fast, fun, and easy to ride. But a competitive pressure occurred in 2017 when non-tethered micromobility scooters and bikes like Bird, Lime, Lyft, and Uber's Jump came into play, leading to one of Metro Bike's largest problems, which is that people aren't using it as often. Now, our research shows that there are two reasons people aren't using it as often. First one is that Metro Bikes are not dockless, which means that they're tethered to stations from our starting to our ending point. Second reason is that Metro Bikes lacks access to world-class talent and rapid innovation like companies like Uber. And that's where our team comes into play to work with the data and arrive at a few things. So the data we had at hand were all the rides from Q3 2016 all the way through Q1 2019 when we had access to our data. And there are two main things we were able to figure out from there. One was the activity in terms of number of rides and the duration of these rides. And then two was the specifications, like the pass holder types and bike types that are performing better or worse. And we analyzed this data across two major verticals. First one being location and second one being time. So this leads to some of our exploratory and research-based questions. The two questions we wanted to get to have a better pulse for the data were A, which regions are most active in LA, and B, what times of day or year are most active. And this leads to our research question of how can Metro Bike LA optimize their spatial allocation of bikes to reach their customers during high and low activity periods. Second thing we wanted to know is which pass holder types are performing well, which leads to our second research question of which pass holder types should Metro Bikes focus on and where moving forward. So let's start off with our initial analysis. Our initial analysis was a basic activity analysis. First, we wanted to cluster within a 15-mile radius all the major stations that Metro Bike caters to. So we arrived at central LA, which you can see right here. Then you have Santa Monica along there, Pasadena, and then Long Beach. So once we got a better feel for each of these clusters, we then wanted to look at the rides by region over the duration to not just see the number of rides that are occurring in these regions, but also how long they're for, to look at some of the customer engagement data that we're looking at. So first we saw that most of these rides are coming from central LA, which is region 1, and the least are coming from Long Beach. And this makes sense because 80% of the data is from central LA and only 1% is from Long Beach, which is fairly skewed. The second thing is that most of these ride durations are between 6 and 15 minutes, while least were 30 minutes and above. And this isn't necessarily the best thing for Metro Bikes, and we'll talk about that a little bit during our initial findings. So the second thing we want to look at after the activity by location was the activity in terms of time. So in terms of the frequency of rides per month, we see that the high period comes in late summer through early fall. So you're looking at the July, August, September time zone. And then it lowers down during the summer, which makes sense in the holiday times, and it picks right back up during New Year's. In terms of the quarters, this data definitely correlates to the monthly because we see a high in Q3 and a low of Q4. Q3 was around the September timeframe, while Q4 is around the winter timeframe. And this leads to our research findings. So first of all, one of our big findings was that the less than 30-minute rides, majority of them come from central LA, while the greater than 30-minute rides come from Santa Monica. This is pretty great because Santa Monica came about second in Metro Bike LA's list of locations they wanted to expand to. Second thing is that Pasadena and Long Beach are the poorest performers across both region and time. During our conclusion, we'll talk a little bit about what they can do to improve those things. But let's get to our second initial analysis, which first looks at the rides by duration over the pass holder type, and then second looks at the duration of a pass holder type over region. So let's look at this over here. Now the shortest rides are coming from our monthly passes, as you can see. I'm incredibly skewed here on the green, and the longer rides are coming from walk-ups. So this is kind of a double-edged sword because on one hand, you see these walk-ups doing really well because with passes, the first 30 minutes are free. So in the monthly pass, with the shorter rides, this is not really good because people are using that first 30 minutes for free. But with the walk-ups, it is good because they're spending majority of their time on that, and Metro Bikes is being able to really optimize their revenue based on these things. Now, we not only wanted to look at some of these durations, we also wanted to look at them over the regions. So the highest average duration comes from Santa Monica and Long Beach, while the least average duration comes from central LA. And this kind of ties into the number of rides. The research findings we generated from here was that first, more people are using one-day passes than flex and annual passes combined. That is definitely not a good thing, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Second thing is that Central LA is making most of their money from membership plans, while Santa Monica and Long Beach are making money from their trip duration. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the shortcomings in our data before we conclude here today. First of all, as I mentioned a little earlier, we had unbalanced data with 80% coming from Central LA, and the bike type is only present in the last 2 quarters, preventing us from being able to do further analysis. Might be able to put in the report though. Second thing was that the rollout of the new passes caused some inconsistency in the data. You see the flex passes is used a little, while one-day passes kind of usher on a little later. And then finally, there's a lack of room for revenue analysis because the user ID and different revenue columns were not in place. And so we recommend the team to provide that data while keeping the user IDs anonymized so that we can dig deeper into it and do better analysis. Now, the conclusion that we have, some of the recommendations that we have is, first of all, we really recommend you invest in Santa Monica. As you know, Central LA is where it started. Santa Monica has been exploding recently in terms of duration of times they saw in the data and the successes in terms of the number of rides and the growth rates. So definitely would recommend that. Second thing is we believe you should invest in dockless rides. Now, innovation in today's technology world with the rise of exponential technologies makes it incredibly hard for government-owned, authorized vehicles to do as well as the companies like Uber, which act and then ask for forgiveness, right? You see Bird in LA coming before the government gave authorization. And the reason they've been able to do well is because they're dockless. They're not tethered to specific stations. So if you can invest in that area, you can leverage the Q3 areas where you're doing much better, and you can reallocate your resources a little bit more efficient than being bound by the locations. Third thing is you should reduce the 30-minute free time for the monthly pass and general passes as well to 15 minutes, because a lot of the data shows that if you make that small transition, first of all, the customer base isn't too large where they get upset about that, and second, you'll actually be able to extract almost triple the amount of revenue. And then finally, Metro needs to incentivize the long-term customers. You know, when we looked at the pass breakdown, we saw that the one-day passes did much better than the other passes, which means that your lifetime value is very low, and that's very bad for the health of the business. You'll see that if customers aren't willing to stay on MetroBike for a longer period of time, then your company is simply not going to do as well. So we recommend doing each of these 4 things, and we wish you best of luck. Thank you so much.